Good evening, night owls. You're listening to AM 108, The Late Wire, broadcasting coast to coast and straight into the quiet corners of your home, your car, or wherever insomnia found you tonight. It's just you and me right now, and we've got a full hour ahead. Nothing fancy, just the hum of the radio, a little company, and some late night stories to ease you into sleep, or whatever comes after. We're running open lines tonight, so if you're awake, if you've got something on your mind, something you saw on the road, or just need to hear a human voice, you know the number, same as always. The weather's been strange lately, hasn't it? Reports of fog rolling in where it shouldn't be. Even some wild talk of animals behaving oddly. But then again, strange weather and odd stories. Those are the backbone of nights like this. We thrive on weird. So let's settle in. My coffee's hot, my mic is live, and the airwaves are yours. If you're out there wherever you are, call in. Let me know what the night looks like from your window. Because here's the thing about radio. It's the only voice that never leaves you alone in the dark. The phone line blinks to life. First call of the night. Let's see who's out there. Host. Late Wire. You're on the air. Who's this? Caller. My name's Ray. I'm not even sure why I called. Host. That's all right, Ray. Sometimes you just need to hear someone talking back. What's on your mind? Caller. I'm driving, heading north on Route 17. There's this fog, but it's not normal fog. It's moving weird. Host. Fog, huh? Well, weather's been? Caller. No, listen. There's something in it. I swear I saw horses in the mist. Real ones. But they weren't just wandering. They were riding. Fast. I pulled over, and they passed right in front of me. Riders. They looked ancient. Armor. Bows. Even the horses looked wrong. Like something from a museum. Host. All right, Ray, you've got my attention. You sure it wasn't some historical reenactment? Caller. In the middle of nowhere, at 2:30 in the morning, no lights, no cameras, nothing. They didn't even see me. They just rode past. And the sound of the hooves, I can still hear it in my chest. Host. Okay, stay with me, Ray. You're not the only night driver out there. Let's see if anyone else is seeing what you saw. The phone board lights up. Host. Looks like we've got company. Stay tuned, folks. Something's happening out there. We're back, and the lines are still full. If you're just tuning in, we've got reports of something unusual happening out near Route 17. Riders in the fog. Not cars, not bikers. Riders on horseback. The static crackles softly through the speakers. We've seen viral stunts before. Flash mobs, hoaxes, that sort of thing, but this feels different. People are scared, and the calls are coming from places miles apart. Same descriptions, same fear in their voices. A soft, rhythmic thudding bleeds into the signal. You hear that? No, don't touch your dial. That's coming from my end. The thudding grows louder, like distant drums, heard through thick air. Could be signal bleed from a nearby station, but the static pulses again. Almost like it's breathing. If you're out there and you're hearing this too, call me. Right now. I've been doing this a long time, and I've heard my share of late night weirdness. But this is different. Whatever's riding through that fog, whatever's tapping at the edges of the frequency, I think we just opened the door and someone's stepping through. All right, folks, this just in. We've got an emergency alert coming through the wire, and it's confusing, to say the least. Reports are coming in from emergency responders near the eastern outskirts. Small villages, mostly farmland, places where not much ever happens. And yet tonight, something is happening. The initial alert mentioned unauthorized movement along rural highways. That's government speak for vehicles where they shouldn't be. But here's where it gets strange. None of these reports mention trucks or cars. They mention riders. Riders on horseback. Moving fast. Too fast. We're talking about rural emergency teams out there, volunteer fire crews, a couple of deputies, people who know every inch of their back roads. They're saying they've never seen anything like this. No license plates to trace, no tire tracks to follow, just hoof prints in the asphalt and shattered windshields where these so-called riders passed by. Now, before you think this is some local prank or a viral stunt, the alert itself was flagged level 3, which, if you're not familiar, that's the same level they use for severe weather events and chemical spills. We're trying to get an official statement from law enforcement. But so far, nothing but silence. But you know what we do have? Listeners. People like you calling in from all over, describing the same thing. Thick fog, the sound of hooves on pavement, and figures riding out of nowhere. Some in ancient armor, others barely more than shadows on horseback. Stay with me, folks. This night just took a hard turn into something we weren't ready for. And right now, you and I, we're all in this together. Phone line crackles. A new voice breaks through. This is Late Wire. You're on the air. Who am I speaking with? Field reporter. This is Tim Harlan. I'm supposed to be off duty tonight, but my scanner picked up something and listen, I don't have long. Host, slow down, Tim. What are you seeing? Field reporter. I'm parked off County Road 14. It's pitch dark out here, but the fog, it's glowing. I'm not kidding. It's lit up like it's holding something inside. And coming right through it, riders. Dozens of them. Horses foaming at the mouth, covered in armor that looks like it was pulled from a history book. Host. You're talking about the same riders we've been hearing about? Field reporter. These aren't actors. They're cutting down cars, literally slicing through them with curved blades. I saw a family pulled over in a minivan. They never had a chance. Host. What about law enforcement? Where's the sheriff's department? Field reporter. They tried to set up a roadblock about a mile ahead. I just saw it get overrun. The officers, they opened fire, but the bullets barely slowed the riders down. Some of them just laughed. Host. What do you mean, laughed? Field reporter. Like they've been waiting for this. Like this wasn't an invasion. It's a return. Host, stay with me. Tim, what do you see now? Field reporter. They've stopped in the middle of the road. One of them is holding something up. Looks like a flag, but it's old, ragged, black and gold. Host, can you make out the symbol? Field reporter. It's a horse. A black horse running over a field of skulls. The line goes dead. I need you to listen closely right now. This isn't just another strange night on the airwaves. Something is happening. Something older than any of us. And to understand what's riding toward us, we have to go back, way back. I've just connected with Dr. Colin Wexler, a historian specializing in nomadic warfare. He's broadcasting from his university office, where he's been pulling ancient texts off his shelves ever since the first reports came in. Dr. Wexler starts with a name, and just saying it feels like stirring a ghost awake. The Mongol Horde. 800 years ago, they weren't just a military force. They were a storm that drowned entire empires. The Mongols rode farther, faster, and struck harder than anyone before them. They left cities in ashes, populations erased, and fear so deep it became part of the earth itself. But that fear didn't die. In parts of Central Asia, there are still villages where the elders refuse to speak Genghis Khan's name aloud. They call him the Black Rider, the one who comes when the sky turns strange. And now, here we are. The fog, the hoofbeats, the riders. Dr. Wexler says, if this is some elaborate hoax, someone has gone to terrifying lengths. Because the armor, the flags, even the patterns of attack, they match the Horde's ancient playbook almost perfectly. History didn't just wake up tonight. It kicked the door off its hinges. And if Dr. Wexler's right, this isn't a return, it's a reminder of what happens when you forget to fear the past. We've been getting live updates from reporters out in the field, and I need to warn you, what they're describing doesn't sound possible. But it's happening. On the outskirts of 3 towns, no connection between them, miles apart. The same scene is unfolding. Lines of vehicles crushed or slashed open, police barricades reduced to smoldering wreckage, and moving through the streets, through neighborhoods, through highways, are riders. They come fast, faster than any horse should. They ride with precision, flanking, surrounding, overwhelming. One officer reported seeing them split a full armored convoy in half in less than 2 minutes. And these aren't just weapons out of a museum. These swords slice through steel. Arrows pierce windshields and body armor alike. There's no shouting, no orders. They move like they already know what every victim will do before they do it. We've confirmed at least one helicopter went down after a rider fired a single flaming arrow straight into its rotor. No modern weapon has stopped them. And the riders, they don't look tired. They don't retreat. If anything, witnesses say they look, amused. Some of the field reporters have started calling them ghosts on horseback. Others say they're not ghosts at all. They're something worse. Something that remembers every village they burned centuries ago, and they've come back to finish what they started. I need you to understand, this isn't a prank. This isn't a viral stunt or an art project gone wrong. This is history, with a blade to our throat. And no one knows how to stop it. Even now, some of you are thinking this can't be real. I get it. It sounds like the script for some apocalyptic horror flick, or maybe a viral campaign designed to freak people out. But it's not. The emergency alerts are real. The footage, grainy, shaky, taken from terrified hands, is already flooding social media. The platforms can't keep up. Every few minutes, a new clip appears. A wall of fog rolling in, followed by silhouettes on horseback, their armor gleaming, their weapons soaked in something darker than rain. But disbelief is a comfortable lie. It's the last defense of people who've never had their world broken open. And tonight, that defense is crumbling fast. There are already influencers laughing it off, calling it some kind of interactive performance art. Experts on morning news panels are scrambling for logical explanations. Reenactment groups, mass hysteria, AI-generated fake footage. But the people calling me, they aren't laughing. They're shaking. They're crying. They're begging for someone to tell them what they're seeing isn't real. Because if it's real, then the past isn't just behind us. It's awake, it's armed, and it remembers every promise it ever made to the future. The Mongol Horde didn't disappear, it just stepped out of sight. And now, in the middle of this night, under this impossible sky, they're writing again. And if history is truly back, then disbelief won't save us. It never did. I want to believe this is all a mistake, a glitch in the system, a coordinated hoax, anything other than what the reports are saying. But the truth is stacking up too fast to ignore. The military has engaged, and they're losing. It started outside a rural checkpoint. National Guard units responding to the first confirmed sightings near a collapsed highway patrol post. A convoy of armored vehicles approached what they thought was a small gathering of costumed riders. They didn't expect a battle. They didn't expect to lose. The first shots were fired into the air, a warning, the kind meant to scare off trespassers. The riders didn't flinch. They split formation, moving faster than the guards could react, circling the convoy like they'd rehearsed this 1,000 times before. Bullets were useless. The riders seemed to twist around them, as if they could see each round before it was fired. When the soldiers switched to heavier weapons, it got worse. Rocket fire vanished into the fog. Drones were plucked out of the air by arrows. Arrows fired with impossible accuracy from horseback. And when the riders closed in, swords cut through steel, as if the vehicles were made of paper. Witnesses say the riders moved with eerie calm. Like they weren't just fighting. They were remembering. Every maneuver was a page from a playbook centuries old, but perfectly adapted to a modern battlefield. What terrifies me most isn't that our weapons didn't work. It's that the riders didn't seem surprised. They expected every tactic, every defense, And they answered with ancient fury hones sharper than any missile. This isn't technology versus technology. This is something older, something none of us were ready to face. And it's only just beginning. I've been broadcasting long enough to know that, in a crisis, experts flood the airwaves. They come armed with charts, theories, and voices designed to calm the public. But tonight, the experts aren't calming anyone. They're arguing with each other and with themselves. Military analysts are baffled. Their models show no logical way for horseback warriors to neutralize armored units with medieval weapons. And yet, the footage is undeniable. Historians are equally shaken, insisting this level of tactical precision, ancient strategies, adapting to modern chaos, could only happen if someone had preserved the knowledge intact for centuries. But who and why? Some are grasping at science, trying to rationalize the impossible. Temporal anomalies, historical bleed-through, but the more they talk, the less sense it makes. The writers aren't phantoms. They cast shadows, leave footprints, spill real blood. They're not holograms or illusions. They are here. And then there are the voices that get cut off mid-broadcast. The ones daring to say the word no one wants to speak. Curse. They suggest that what's riding through the fog tonight isn't just an army. It's a reckoning, triggered by something we were never meant to disturb. There's a historian out there, barricaded in his office, sifting through centuries of suppressed records. I can hear paper shuffling, pages turning, his breath catching every few moments. He just told me off air. This was foretold. Whatever this is, it's not random. It's not a prank. It's history itself, keeping a promise we forgot it made. And now, the sound I hoped I'd never hear outside of a documentary. Air raid sirens, not one, not two, but across entire cities stretching from the rural edges all the way into major population centers. Some of you listening, we see, might not even recognize that sound. It's not part of our daily life anymore, not in this country. These sirens were built for a different time, a different kind of war. A war we were told belonged to history. But tonight, history is at our doorstep, and those old voices, the metal-throated wails of sirens that once warned of incoming bombers, are crying out for something far older. Something that doesn't fly through the air, but rides over land with hooves and steel and fire. Authorities aren't calling it an invasion. Not officially. They don't have a name for it yet. How could they? There's no protocol for this. No handbook for a nation waking up to find the ghosts of its forgotten wars galloping through its streets. And here's the part that chills me down to the bone. These sirens were last tested decades ago. Some were thought to be broken. They were supposed to be silent relics. But tonight, they screamed to life. Without warning, without orders, almost like something in the air knew they were needed. Almost like the earth itself remembers what it felt like to tremble beneath the hooves of the horde. The riders are coming, and now even the air is afraid. The sirens haven't stopped. They're screaming across the airwaves, folding themselves into the static, becoming part of the signal. And I need you to understand, I'm not alone in this studio anymore. Not physically, no one's broken in, but the phone lines, they're full. I've never seen them light up like this. It's not just locals. It's people from counties away, states away, all saying the same thing. Some saw the riders, some only heard them. A few saw the fog part just long enough to glimpse faces. Faces too weathered to belong to anyone alive. One caller swore he saw a rider whose eyes were stitched shut with something that glinted in the moonlight. But it's not just the riders they're afraid of. It's the air itself. The sense that something enormous and ancient is leaning over their homes, breathing down the back of their necks. Another caller couldn't speak at all. He just sobbed into the phone. The only word I could make out between gasps was Khan. The fear is spreading faster than the riders themselves. People aren't just terrified of what's outside. They're terrified of what's waking up inside them. Old fears they didn't know they carried, like something inherited, passed down in their bones. Hold tight to your radios. I don't know how much longer we'll have each other, but as long as my mic is live, you won't face this alone. And I promise you, the fear you're feeling, you're not the only one. The next voice that comes through the line isn't frantic. It isn't screaming. It's old, calm, the kind of voice that's seen too much to panic. Her name is Bayan, calling from a retirement home in western Montana. She speaks with an accent that bends her vowels like wind over a field, and what she says freezes the blood in my veins. She remembers stories her grandmother told her when she was a child. Stories about the Horde. Not the ones you read in history books, but the ones whispered between breaths when the oil lamps burned low. Stories of nights when the sky filled with unnatural fog, and the earth shook under hoofbeats no one could see. Her grandmother told her about a night when the Khan's riders passed through their village, not to raid, but to listen. They rode up and down the streets, their faces hidden behind iron masks, as though they were searching for something. And the village elders knew. They said some debts never die, that the land remembers every betrayal, every treaty broken, every insult left unanswered, and the Horde, they were the hand that history sent to settle those debts. Bayan's voice shakes when she says the riders are back because the world forgot to pay what it owed. She doesn't know what the debt was, only that the earth remembers and the earth always collects. She tells me to leave the radio on. Not because she's afraid to die, but because she wants to hear the hooves coming. She wants to know how close the past is standing to her door. Before the line goes dead, she whispers something her grandmother used to say, a prayer or a warning. I can't tell which. History rides a black horse, and the black horse always finds the trail. The next call is already waiting, and this one brings something even stranger. The voice that comes through next is young, maybe 15, 16 years old. His father is shouting in the background, trying to yank the phone away, but the boy won't let go. He says his sister started speaking in her sleep an hour ago. At first they thought it was just a nightmare, until the words changed. They weren't English. They weren't any language the family spoke. The boy put his phone up to her mouth, and what came through wasn't a scream or a sob. It was chanting. Low, rhythmic. Too fast to be fully human. A linguist we had on earlier, he's still listening. And when he hears the chant, he breaks down in tears live on air. I ask him what the words mean. He says they don't fully translate, but the closest meaning is this. The sky remembers. The earth remembers. We have come to collect. The boy swears. His sister has never studied Mongolian history. She doesn't know these words. No one in their family does. But somehow, through whatever fracture has opened between past and present, the words found her anyway. And now, the boy says his sister isn't alone. He can hear other voices echoing inside the house, distant, layered voices speaking the same chant in different accents, different tones, as though every ghost that ever rode with the Horde is waking up, and they're all speaking through her. He says they've locked every door, but the chanting won't stop. The call cuts out, and I'm left staring at the lines, wondering how many more families are hearing voices they were never meant to understand. We always thought history was something we studied, something we left safely behind us in books. But tonight, history has a voice, and it knows our names. I've got two psychologists waiting on the line. One works crisis response for mass casualty events. The other specializes in cultural trauma. Generational fear passed down like a virus through stories, rituals, even blood. They're here to help us make sense of the madness. But I'm starting to wonder if sense is even possible tonight. The crisis expert goes first. She says what we're seeing fits the textbook pattern of mass hysteria, a shared delusion, fed by fear, amplified by social media spreading like wildfire. People see a rider in the fog, they panic, they pass the story along until even those who never saw a thing start to believe they did. But the second expert interrupts. He says this is no ordinary hysteria. The descriptions are too precise, too historically accurate. People who've never read a word of Mongol history are describing details no one outside a university archive should know. The design of the stirrups, the shape of the bows, the chants. This isn't hysteria, he says. It's ancestral memory, surfacing all at once, triggered by something we can't see but all of us can feel. He calls it cultural resonance, a frequency carried through bloodlines and buried in bone, waiting for the right moment to wake up. And tonight, it woke up everywhere at once, not just in descendants of those who faced the Horde, but in all of us, every culture, every nation, every civilization that heard the hoofbeats coming in the dark, no matter how long ago. But there's something else neither of them can explain. Why are children chanting in dead languages? Why are people across the country speaking the same impossible visions? This goes deeper than fear. This feels like a summoning. A memory so strong, it's bending reality to make itself heard. And while the experts argue over what to call it, the calls keep coming. The next one is different. The voice trembles. The story scars, and after you hear it, you'll understand why no one who survives tonight will ever sleep soundly again. You're on the air. Go ahead. Caller's voice trembling. My name's Paul. I didn't know who else to call. You're the only voice still broadcasting. Host. Take a breath, Paul. Tell us what you saw. Caller. They came down my road about an hour ago. I live on the edge of town where the fields run straight to the woods. At first, I thought it was a storm. The fog rolled in so fast the streetlights disappeared. Then I heard the hooves. They weren't galloping. It was slower, controlled, like they knew exactly where they were going. I could see them from my window. Riders in black, faces hidden behind metal masks that shone in the porch light. They stopped right in front of my house. One of them dismounted. He walked up to my door, slow and steady, and knocked once. Just once. I couldn't move. My wife was screaming. My kids were hiding under the table. But I couldn't move. The door opened, and he stood there, looking at me. Host, what did you see? Caller, he smiled. That's all. He smiled like he knew me. Like this was personal. Then he spoke. But the words weren't English. I don't know what language it was, but somehow I understood. He said, "The debt is due." Then he turned and walked back to his horse. That's when the fire started. Without a match, without gasoline. Just fire, climbing the walls, devouring everything. I barely got my family out. As we ran down the road, I looked back one last time. He was still standing there. Still smiling, not chasing us, not raising his sword, just smiling, like the fire was an old friend. Host. Paul, are you safe now? Caller. Safe? There's no safe anymore. They're not just here to kill, they're here to collect. And I think they've known my name for a very long time. Host. Stay with me, Paul. Stay on this line. You're not alone. But the line goes silent. We have just received a national address from the president. I want to say it was reassuring. I want to say it gave us answers. But if you heard it, you already know. It did neither. The president's voice came through thin, stretched tight like a frayed wire. She opened with phrases we've all heard before. Remain calm. Stay indoors. Law enforcement and emergency responders are fully mobilized. But the cracks in her voice bled through every word. This wasn't a leader delivering reassurance. This was a person trying to convince themselves they still understood the world. She called the riders an unidentified militant group. That's the phrase they're going with, militant group. As if any group, no matter how well trained, could ride through bullets and mortar fire like mist. As if they could split tanks with swords and set fires with bare hands. She didn't mention the historical connection. Didn't say the word Mongol once. Maybe they think if they don't name it, it won't be real. But history doesn't care what name we give it. It remembers its own. And the worst part? She promised it was under control. But behind that promise, you could hear the silence of every city that's already fallen. Promises are easy to make when the truth is too big to say out loud. The address ended with a phrase I haven't heard from a president in my lifetime. May God help us all. If that's all they have left, then we're further gone than they want to admit. Within minutes of that address, emergency orders hit every frequency we monitor. Full military mobilization, no hesitation, no gradual escalation. They threw everything they had. Armor, air power, rapid response teams, straight into the heart of wherever the riders had been reported last. Reports flooded in, and for a moment, it almost sounded like control was possible. Convoys rolling out, helicopters slicing through the air, soldiers deploying in formation along rural highways and the edges of small towns. It was fast, efficient, like a textbook operation, but you could hear it in the voices of the commanders. They didn't understand what they were facing. They still thought this was a problem technology could solve. That modern force could crush ancient fury. The first contact came from a stretch of farmland just outside a town called Clearbrook. A recon drone spotted the riders, dozens of them, moving silently through the fog, formation tight, speed impossible for horses over rough ground. The convoy commander ordered warnings, flares, then warning shots. When the riders didn't stop, they opened fire. That was the moment modern war met something older, something immune to every advance we've ever made. The bullets passed through the fog, but the riders barely slowed. Arrows answered back, arrows tipped with some dark substance that burned through metal like acid. Armored vehicles found themselves surrounded within minutes, the riders circling like wolves, cutting down engines, antennas, everything that kept those soldiers tethered to the world they knew. This wasn't just an attack, it was a lesson. The Horde wasn't here to win a battle. They were here to show us that for all our technology, all our progress, we are still made of soft flesh and fragile belief, and right now both are bleeding fast. We have live feeds, some from embedded journalists, others from soldiers themselves, broadcasting through their helmet mics. I'm going to warn you now, what you're about to hear doesn't sound possible, but every second of it is real. A column of tanks moves into position along a ridge overlooking the fog. Infrared picks up the riders moving below, but the sensors can't lock. They shift, fade, disappear like ghosts. Orders come through, fire at will. Shells scream down into the mist. Nothing. The fog rolls back, untouched. The riders emerge, still in formation, their horses unfazed by the explosions around them. And then they charge. The first wave hits the lead tank head on. A rider vaults from his horse, lands on the turret, and drives a blade straight through the hatch. One man, one sword, and the tank is crippled in seconds. Another rider looses an arrow and a drone explodes midair like it hit a wall of glass. Helicopters sweep in, low rotor blades slicing the fog. The riders respond by drawing bows. Their arrows curve in flight, almost like they're thinking, adapting in midair. No modern weapon works the way it should. Bullets stop in the fog. Missiles veer off course. Electronic targeting flickers and dies. And the soldiers, they're not fighting an enemy. They're drowning in a nightmare that fights back. One surviving sergeant described the riders up close. He said they smiled as they cut through the convoy. Smiled like they'd done this before. Smiled like they remembered every mistake we made the last time they rode. The battlefield isn't a battlefield anymore. It's a stage. And we're not fighting to win. We're playing our parts in a story written centuries ago, a story we forgot we were still in. The reports coming in now say the riders have split into smaller groups. spreading out across back roads and suburbs, riding straight into places that have never seen war before. And if history holds, they won't stop until the story finishes itself, until the last voice falls silent, which means this broadcast might be the last one you hear. But I'm not signing off yet. Not while you're still listening. I've got two analysts with me now, one from a military think tank, the other a historian specializing in unconventional warfare. Both of them have spent their careers untangling modern conflicts, mapping the logic behind battles and strategies. But tonight, there's no logic left to map. The military analyst starts first. His voice is tight, brittle, like he's trying to hold on to reason with both hands. He says no army in history, not one, could stand against the firepower deployed tonight. Tanks, helicopters, drones, smart munitions, all the things we built to win wars before they ever start. And yet, none of it mattered. He pulls up satellite footage, but the explanation dies in his throat. The formations the Horde used tonight, perfect flanking maneuvers, encirclement tactics, they match known Mongol strategies down to the meter. Not a close resemblance, an exact match. The historian picks up from there. He explains that Mongol battle doctrine was based on flexibility, constant adaptation to the enemy's strengths. But there's no way they could have adapted to this world, to technology they've never seen, except somehow they did. They struck the drones first, took out communication relays, severed digital command chains, exactly the kind of electronic warfare strategy used by modern superpowers. The historian admits what the analyst can't. This isn't adaptation. It's anticipation. It's as if the Horde didn't just return. They returned expecting us, like they knew how we'd fight before we did. And that's when the historian says something I'll never forget. This isn't war. This is a memory coming true. Because if the past is replaying itself, logic no longer applies. And if logic is gone, all we have left is fear. And the story's fear carries with it. As the experts fall silent, the conspiracy broadcasters fill the void. They're faster than official news, louder than emergency alerts. Some of them have been preaching this for years, prophecies of a rider's return, warnings that ancient conquerors would rise when the world forgot their terror. They talk about secret treaties made in blood, ancient burial sites disturbed for profit, relics smuggled out of their resting places and sold to collectors who never understood what they were buying. They claim this storm didn't start tonight. It started the moment the first sword was stolen from the wrong grave. But not all of them blame greed. Some say this was intentional, that someone, somewhere, wanted this. A cult, maybe. Or a hidden government faction obsessed with tapping into the raw power of history itself. The words time fracture and ritual sacrifice are being thrown around like loose change. They say the riders aren't invaders. They're summoned weapons, a force called back into existence by people who thought they could control what came through. But now the riders are loose, and whoever called them forgot one thing. You can't leash history. You can only run from it. And tonight, there's nowhere left to run. It's happening right now, and you can hear it if you know where to listen. One by one, the official frequencies are falling silent. The emergency broadcast system, the military command frequencies, even the National Press Service, all vanishing into static, not overloaded, not cut off, just gone, like they were never there at all. The only voices left are the ones no one controls. The rogue broadcasters, the ham radio operators, the pirate stations, running out of basements and attics. We're all that's left now. A loose thread of voices trying to hold this fraying world together. No orders, no chain of command. Just fear, stretching from frequency to frequency, trying to find somewhere safe to land. I don't know how much longer this station will hold. Every time the signal crackles, I wonder if it's the Horde themselves crawling into the wires. They seem to understand technology better than they should. They've already silenced our strongest defenses. Why wouldn't they silence our voices next? But until that happens, I'll be here. You and me, holding this fragile line between knowing and falling apart. Keep your radio close. If this signal disappears, you'll know what it means. It means history caught up with us. I have 4 experts lined up on this broadcast, 4 people who should, under normal circumstances, be able to explain what's happening tonight. Instead, what I'm hearing from them is fear disguised as theory. The quantum physicist starts first, his voice too calm, like someone speaking through clenched teeth. He suggests we may be witnessing a temporal distortion, some kind of crack in time, where events from the past leak into the present. He says time isn't as rigid as we think, that under extreme pressure, history can fold back on itself, letting ancient events bleed into modern air. Before he can finish, the historian interrupts. She calls that theory comforting fiction. If this were a time fracture, history would spill through like fog. But what we're seeing isn't a spill. It's intentional movement. The writers are not confused relics stumbling through the wrong century. They're targeted, moving with purpose, like they knew exactly how to find us. The anthropologist offers a cultural angle. He talks about ancestral fear memory, a phenomenon where trauma leaves fingerprints on the collective mind. Maybe, he says, this isn't just a Mongol invasion. Maybe it's our own fear of the Horde so deeply buried in human history that tonight we called them back without realizing it. The last voice belongs to a theologian, brought in at the last minute. He doesn't offer a theory, just a warning. There are things older than science, and some doors can only be opened from the inside. 4 experts, 4 explanations, and not one of them can tell me how to stop what's already here. Some of you listening are asking the same question I am. What are they? Scientists want to believe they're physical, flesh and bone, pulled through some unnatural tear between centuries, a cosmic accident, an anomaly, maybe even a ripple caused by one of our own weapons tests, something we triggered without knowing. But the paranormal researchers, the ones I usually keep off this show, they're louder tonight than they've ever been. To them, this isn't physics, it's prophecy. They call the writers revenants, ghosts so deeply bound to history that they return when their story is disturbed. They say the Mongol Horde left more than bones and blood in their wake. They left a scar in the earth itself, a scar we've been building over and digging into for centuries, and now that scar is wide open. There's evidence, they claim, buried in reports no government wants to admit exist. Documents from old Soviet field teams who stumbled on mass graves across Mongolia. Graves that hummed, literally hummed, as though the ground itself was trying to speak. The Soviets sealed the sites, but something was disturbed, and the hum spread. It found its way into artifacts, swords, armor, even horse skulls, trafficked to private collectors. Each piece, they say, was a thread holding the Horde in place. And now the threads have snapped, physical or spectral, ghost or soldier. Either way, the result is the same. The writers are here. They are killing. They are burning. They are smiling. The scientists cling to data. The paranormal experts cling to prophecy. But both camps are united on one point. Whatever the writers are, they are real. And they know they are being watched. We intercepted a signal earlier tonight. A chant, ancient and broken, coming through on a military frequency. What you're about to hear isn't just sound. It's the voice of history speaking for itself. The intercepted audio arrived an hour ago, but linguists have been working on it ever since. The first few minutes were easy. Mongolic dialects long dead, but preserved in historical texts. Prayers for victory, oaths sworn under sky gods, standard war chants from the 13th century. But then the chant changed. Words began appearing that no one recognized, not in Mongolic, not in any known Turkic, Chinese, or Persian records. The linguists tried tracing roots, digging into phonetic patterns, but some of the words didn't even follow human speech mechanics. Consonants where none should be, sounds that seemed to fold in on themselves. The The Lee translator called it an impossible tongue, part Mongol war chant, part something older, something that belonged to the earth itself before language was ever carved into it. And the meaning? It wasn't a threat. It wasn't even a warning. It was a reminder. Roughly translated, it says, "The sky remembers. The earth remembers. You forgot." But we did not. The chant loops again and again, but each time it plays, the order changes, like the words themselves are alive, shifting to fit the shape of whoever hears them. Linguists are panicking. One quit mid-translation, claiming the chant knew her name. Another suffered a seizure while trying to phonetically transcribe the final verse, his mouth filling with blood, though there was no injury. Even with the loop playing right now, my equipment is acting strange. Small pulses in the audio feed, almost like breathing. I'm not alone in here. You're not alone wherever you are. The riders don't just ride, they call. And every time we listen, the door opens a little wider. We'll keep translating, but here's the truth. It doesn't matter if we understand the words. The meaning is already clear. The past remembers us. There's something happening out there. Not just with the riders, but with the people watching them ride. I've been monitoring more than the military channels. I've been listening to the underground broadcasts, the encrypted chat rooms, the back alley religious frequencies that only flicker to life when the world's about to break. And they're all saying the same thing. This isn't a war, it's a reckoning. In some towns, people have taken to the streets, not to fight the Horde, but to welcome them. There are cults forming faster than the fog can roll in. Groups who believe the riders aren't invaders at all. But divine messengers come to burn the world clean. They call them the sky-bound judges, the ones who ride when memory and sin grow too heavy for the earth to bear. They're kneeling in the streets, chanting prayers pulled from apocryphal texts I've never even heard of, texts no mainstream faith will claim. But they've been waiting for this night, praying for it, preparing their souls for the moment the hoofbeats come to take them. Others, far darker, are preaching that the riders are a key. They say the Horde isn't here to punish the wicked, but to open something. A gate, a seal, a long-buried door that leads somewhere older than history itself. They call it the Door of Returning. And they believe that once the riders complete their circle, we won't just be facing an ancient army. We'll be standing face to face with whatever made them. Belief has become its own contagion tonight. Fear alone was dangerous, but belief is fuel. Some are surrendering. Others are arming themselves for a war they think prophecy promised them. But all of them are making one terrible mistake. They think belief will protect them. The Horde doesn't care what you believe. The Horde remembers only what you owe. I've just made contact with a historian, an old man broadcasting from a barricaded archive deep in the heart of a city already losing power. His voice is hoarse, and I can hear papers rustling as he speaks. He's digging through centuries of forbidden texts, piecing together fragments of prophecy no government wanted to acknowledge. He says the warnings stretch back farther than the Mongol Empire itself, back to the first nomads who crossed the Central Asian plains, back to the whispered legends of the Black Horizon, a name given to any sky darkened by approaching hooves. Every era added a verse. Every conquest left a scar in language itself. He reads from a page so brittle it cracks as he touches it. When the sky turns black with smoke and steel, when the ground forgets the weight of peace, the ones who rode before will ride again, and the earth will pay its forgotten debt. The historians knew, the conquerors knew, even the generals who built walls against phantom threats. They all knew the riders weren't just men. They were reminders, walking memories sent to collect the cost of arrogance. What's worse, He says some governments found the prophecy decades ago. They dismissed it as myth, but a handful took it seriously enough to search for countermeasures. Rituals to bind the riders, lock the past behind symbolic gates. But the last record of any successful binding dates back to the 1500s. Every attempt after that failed. The riders grew stronger with each generation that forgot them. And tonight, every failure, every broken seal, every stolen relic, that debt just came due. The historian's voice cracks as he reads the final line of the prophecy, a line no one ever translated out loud until now. History is patient, but the past is hungry. The call ends with a crash, something outside his archive, then silence. There's one more transmission I need to play for you. We intercepted it minutes ago, somewhere between a radio frequency and a chant carried by the fog itself. The sound quality is broken, distorted, like it passed through too many years before reaching us. At first, it sounds like the chants we've already heard, battle songs, oaths to the sky and earth, but the deeper we listen, the more wrong it becomes. Some of the words don't fit any language, ancient or modern. They pulse, fracture, stretch in the ways human throats shouldn't manage. We ran the transmission through every translation algorithm we have access to. Most programs crashed. The one that survived gave us this. The first debt was paid in blood. The second in silence. The third was stolen when the earth forgot to fear. Tonight, we collect the final price. There's a pause in the chant, just a moment, and in that silence, we hear something else. A name, not a Mongol name, not the name of a king or a general. It's my name. Somehow, the riders know who's speaking. They know this broadcast exists. They know who's holding the thin thread between knowing and not knowing. I don't know what that means for me. I don't know if this is a warning or a promise, but the last word in the transmission, that one word the translation refused to touch, is a word none of us should ever hear. It's the name of the first rider, the one who led the first charge when the sky went black. And somehow, just hearing that name in my own voice feels like opening a door I will never be able to close again. The signal is degrading. Something's pushing against the edges of the broadcast, like the riders themselves are riding through the airwaves. I don't know how much longer we have, but as long as this microphone works, I'll be here. As long as you're listening, I'll speak, because if the past remembers us, then the least we can do is remember the truth. It's happening faster than I expected. Every few minutes, I check the frequency map, and every time I look, another station disappears. Not a garbled signal, not static or overload, just gone. Like the air itself swallowed them whole. The big networks were the first to vanish. Government-run stations followed. Even the emergency broadcast channels, those bulletproof frequencies designed to survive nuclear war, are falling silent one by one. That leaves us, the independents, the pirates, the rogue broadcasters clinging to whatever equipment we have left. I can still hear a handful of us out there, voices crackling through the dark like distant fires. Some of them are just relaying news, updates from the last town still standing. Others, they're praying, or confessing, or screaming. The silence isn't random, it's moving, spreading outward from the first sightings of the riders. Almost like the Horde isn't just cutting down people and cities, they're severing the airwaves themselves, shutting down every voice that tries to name them. I don't know how they're doing it. Maybe the answer is technological, some ancient knowledge of disrupting signals that history forgot. Or maybe it's older than technology, older than words. Maybe it's something as simple and brutal as fear, a fear so deep, it warps reality around it until the very air refuses to carry sound. Whatever it is, we're running out of voices, and when the voices go, the memories go. When the memories go, the story ends. I'll hold this frequency as long as I can. But if my voice disappears, you'll know what it means. It means the past didn't just silence us. It erased us. The phone lines are open. I don't know for how much longer, but right now, they still work. And the calls, they're coming faster than I can answer. They're not questions anymore. No one's asking what's happening. Or who are they? The callers know. We all know. Now, it's just goodbyes. A woman in Ohio called to leave a message for her daughter. She told me to say, if anyone finds her, that she was sorry for that fight they had 2 years ago. A man in Alberta just wanted someone to hear him say his wife's name one more time before the riders found his town. Some calls come from voices too young to understand, a child whispering because their parents told them to hide in the basement, and now the house is too quiet. The last thing they asked me was whether it's okay to leave the light on. I told them yes. Even if the power goes, leave the light in your mind. Don't let it go dark. But it's not just goodbyes. Some calls, some are messages from people who already saw the riders, who survived the first wave but won't survive the next. They describe impossible things, fires that burn against the wind, shadows that move against the light. They describe the smiles on the faces of the riders, like they're remembering every soul they've ever taken. Some of these voices are already too late. When I answer, all I hear is breathing. Slow, steady, not human, like a horse waiting outside a door, patient as time itself. I'll take every call I can. Every voice matters. Even if this is the end, we deserve to be remembered. Even if the only ones left to remember us are the ones who came to destroy us. I have one more voice to share tonight, a historian named Dr. Evan Carr, barricaded inside a collapsing museum somewhere near what used to be Philadelphia. He found me through a back-channel frequency, a line so old it predates modern emergency systems. That's where we are now, relying on technology built before we were born, because nothing newer can survive this night. Dr. Carr isn't just a historian. He specializes in siege records, how cities fall, how populations collapse, how civilizations die. He's been studying the original Mongol conquest for most of his life, and now, as his building shakes under the weight of something outside, he's watching history repeat itself, not from a book, but from his own window. He says the patterns are identical. The fog, the fires, the psychological warfare, the way the Horde lets terror do the killing long before the blades arrive. Even the silence, the way cities go dark, not because the power fails, but because no one dares speak aloud. Carr tells me something I didn't know. In medieval chronicles, the Mongols were described as riding silence itself. Their approach killed the air so that no one could warn the next village in time. People tried to explain it with superstition back then. Now it's happening again. And even with satellites and fiber optics, we're still losing the ability to warn each other. He reads from one of his oldest manuscripts, a siege record from the fall of Nishapur. The description could have been written tonight. They came like mist, cut like thunder, and left no voices behind. Dr. Carr knows his own time is almost up, but before he goes, he leaves me one last fact. The original chroniclers never wrote how the final cities fell. They just stopped writing, not because they died, but because the memory itself was taken. That's what the writers want. Not land, not wealth. They want the memory, the story of us erased. And if that's true, then this broadcast isn't just for you, it's for history itself. I'm running out of experts. The ones I trusted to filter fact from fear, most of them are gone now. Their lines are dead, their signals swallowed by the same silence that's eating the sky. That leaves me with what's left. Theories born from ashes, broadcast by the desperate, the obsessed, and the ones who have already accepted that understanding is the last luxury we'll ever lose. Some say this is vengeance, pure and ancient. that the Horde was never fully defeated, only sealed away. And tonight they ride not just to conquer, but to correct the arrogance of every empire that believed history could be buried. They say the earth itself remembers the weight of their hooves, and the soil opened willingly to let them out. Others insist this isn't supernatural at all. That time itself has collapsed under the weight of too much memory. That every monument, every museum, every battlefield turned tourist attraction was a scar, a wound that never closed. And tonight, every wound reopened at once until the past poured into the present like blood from a severed artery. One caller, an old man whispering in broken Russian, claimed the Soviets knew this would happen. That deep beneath Mongolia, there was a vault built not to protect history, but to trap it. And when that vault was disturbed, whether by greed, by ignorance, or by something darker, the past didn't just escape. It came back with a purpose. I don't know what to believe. I don't even know if belief matters anymore. All I know is this. The more we dig for answers, the closer we get to the truth we spent centuries pretending didn't exist. The past isn't a story we tell ourselves. It's a debt we were always meant to pay. If this is the last time my voice reaches anyone out there, then there's something I need you to hear. We were warned. Every book, every chronicle, every faded map, gathering dust in archives no one visited anymore. They all told us. They told us what happened the last time the ground shook with hooves. They told us how cities burned not because of the fire itself, but because of the fear that came before it. Fear so strong it made walls crumble before a single sword was drawn. But we didn't listen. We turned the history into entertainment, glorified it in films, celebrated conquerors as if brutality was something to admire. We took war and made it beautiful, made it part of our identity. We forgot that the past wasn't a story. It was a warning label. Every ruin, every ancient battlefield we visited for selfies and postcards, those places weren't meant to teach us pride. They were meant to teach us fear. Fear of what happens when you believe you've conquered history, instead of remembering that history was only waiting. And we were arrogant enough to believe that time moved only forward, that progress was some straight road, leading us safely away from the blood behind us. But tonight that road curved. Tonight the past caught up. We wanted to study history. We wanted to own it, define it, carve it into marble, and hang it on museum walls. But history doesn't belong to us. It belongs to them, the ones who made it, the ones who bled to write it in the first place. And tonight, they've come to take it back. Every empire that fell to the Horde thought they were different, that their walls were higher, their weapons sharper, their gods stronger. Every one of them was wrong, just like us. We built digital walls. We armed ourselves with satellites and drones and missiles that could strike across oceans. And none of it mattered, because the riders didn't need to breach our walls. They were already inside our fear, our stories, our bones. If anyone finds this recording, if any voice survives to hear these words, remember, history isn't something we left behind. It's something waiting ahead. And every step we take brings us closer to it. I need you to listen carefully, not to my voice, but to what's underneath it. It started about 3 minutes ago, so soft I thought it was a glitch. A low vibration beneath the static, almost rhythmic. But now it's louder. It's hoofbeats. I don't know how, but they found the frequency. They're in the signal itself, riding between the words, filling the silence between breaths. Every time I pause, they get louder. There's no one left to call, no one left to warn. I could cut the feed, but I won't. Because if the world is ending tonight, I want someone, somewhere, to hear what that ending sounds like. You think it would be fire, or screaming, or sirens. But it's not. It's just hooves, and the wind, and the faintest echo of laughter. The smile the survivors talked about, the one the riders wore as they burned through towns and cities. It's in the sound now. You can't see it, but you can feel it. They were never just here to kill. They were here to remember. And now they know we remember too. The static is breaking apart. My voice won't hold much longer. Whatever's writing the signal is heavier than anything a transmitter can carry. This microphone, it wasn't built for ghosts. If this is the last sound you hear, know this. We didn't lose because we were weak. We lost because we forgot. We lost because we thought the past was something we survived. But the past doesn't stay buried. The past rides. And tonight, it found its way home. This is the last frequency. And now, the silence arrives. Maybe this is goodbye. Maybe this is just a pause in a story we were never meant to tell. But before I go, I need to ask you something. And I want you to think carefully before you answer. If the past could remember you by name, what would it remember you for? Would it remember the stories you told? The fears you carried? Or the warnings you ignored? Because that's all the history ever was. Not dates or battles or kings, but the memories we refused to forget. The ones we kept alive because we knew that someday they might come riding back to find us. And now, here we are, together. A voice in the dark reaching out to whoever's still listening. So before this frequency dies, I need you to do one thing. Don't let this story end here. Leave your answer in the comments below. Tell me, if the past knew your name, what would it whisper back to you? Subscribe if you want to hear more stories like this, Matt. Because some memories deserve to be remembered, even when they terrify us. And share this broadcast with someone you care about. Someone who should know that memory isn't just history. It's a warning label we write in blood and silence. This is the last frequency. And you are now part of the story. Stay safe out there. Or better yet, stay remembered.